Hi folks, Russell Smith here, and I am standing in the beautiful Hudson River Valley. I'm in Rhinebeck, New York. Come up here for the second Color of Flight workshop, which my buddy Mark Poole and I will be hosting this weekend up at Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome. Now, if you saw our first video from 2 years ago, you'll know that Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome is a really neat place full of antique airplanes, World War I replicas. It was started several years back by a guy named Payne. And fortunately, even though Payne passed away a number of years ago, a good group of people are keeping that legacy alive. And it's really just a special place. My buddy Mark and I, we hosted a workshop here in 2021. We had 10 students, a great group. It was a lot of fun, and we decided we wanted to do it again. This year we've got 12 students signed up, and it looks like the weather's going to be beautiful this weekend. We're going to focus on painting from life, painting plein air, and talking about some of the concepts of art, some of the fundamental concepts, and helping some of these aviation artists step outside their comfort zone and paint from life, which is really a different experience from painting in the studio. Right now, I'm standing down on the Hudson River. Mark hadn't rolled into town yet. I got in last night, but I'm waiting on Mark to get into town. But I decided to come down on the river and drink my coffee and eat some breakfast and just enjoy the view. What a beautiful setting. What a great place to be painting. Of course, this area was home to a famous school of artists, the Hudson River Valley School of Artists, which included Church and Bierstadt and some of my favorite American artists. And you can easily see why they were inspired by this area. And it's really neat to be here. Mark and I are going to come down by the river later this afternoon and do some plein air painting ourselves. We're looking forward to that. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the video. We're going to try to do this workshop again in a couple of years. We're trying to do it every other year. So I hope this video inspires other artists to come join us, because the more the merrier. We like getting out of our studios and talking shop and just talking about the highs and lows of creating art and selling art for a living. But anyway, enjoy the video, and I'm going to enjoy my coffee. All right, well, I'm here with Tara Grebe. She's the Director of Operations for Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome. She's new to the position, but what's great about this is there have been a lot of changes to Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome since we were here 2 years ago. Tara, would you tell us about some of the cool things that have happened in the past couple of years?
Absolutely. We are going through a wonderful, what I call infrastructure upgrade for our physical plant, which means that we have 2 brand new hangars that have been built on site. They are weatherproof. They are definitely better for keeping our collection safe and sound, and also give us better facilities to maintain them and grow what we do. We're also going through what I would call a bit of a renaissance in general, which is just reaching out to new crowds and getting them to come and see us.
Yeah, and you were telling me some of the plans of things coming up, which I'm not going to mention any of them because I don't want to feel like I'm cementing you into anything solid. But there's some exciting things coming up. They're still doing renovations, still planning out how to renew this place, but still maintain the feel from 100 years ago. Still uphold the charm that it's always had, but make it a little more user-friendly, particularly to young people and to the older crowd who can't necessarily get around like they used to. But we're excited to be out here. Thank you so much for letting us come out.
We're really glad that you're with us.
Accommodating us. We're looking forward to the weekend. I think it's going to be a really great weekend. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
For the first day of our workshop, we began with a morning classroom instruction session. During this session, we focused on basic art fundamentals, tips and strategies for plein air painting, and a demonstration of the site size method of establishing a composition. Our workshop consisted of artists of all different skill levels, so Mark and I wanted to make sure that everyone was speaking the same language before we started pushing paint around. After lunch, we set up our painting kits around the aerodrome's beautiful Curtis J and Ford Ginny, which had been rolled into the center courtyard for our use. Since it was Friday, we had the whole place to ourselves. As we were painting, we were visited by a friend of ours, noted author and illustrator James Gurney, along with his wife Jeanette, who's also an artist. James and Jeanette had visited our workshop in 2021, and so I extended an invitation for them to come back again this year.
All right, well, I have here with me Mr. James Gurney. James was very gracious enough to come out and join us painting today. A lot of people watching this video are probably familiar with your name. If they're not, they're familiar with your work, because Mr. Gurney is the author and illustrator of the Dinotopia series, which was really popular, I guess, when I was younger. Not when I was a kid. I was already an adult when you came out with that, but it caught my eye, and it was really, really neat work. And as I was just telling you a minute ago, I used to read the book to my son at bedtime. You were also the author of Color and Light and Imaginative Realism, which are terrific, terrific instructional books for any artist. Anybody working representationally should have these books. And also you also do the Gurney Journey series on YouTube, which is also terrific information.
Thank you.
And what I want to tell you, what I appreciate about your approach is that it reminds me a lot of the French academics from the 19th century, how they took a very analytical approach. They didn't just paint what they saw, they wanted to know why it looked like that and why it worked like that. And they knew everything about it. And that's kind of the approach you take. How did you come to that position with your art?
Well, thank you for that very nice introduction, but I was always a huge fan of the academic painters and the Golden Age illustrators for the reason you mentioned, that they were interested in the world around them and they wanted to figure out how to tell a story with their pictures, which is what you guys do.
Right.
And as a kid, I grew up with not so much with comic books and the popular culture of my day, but much more of the older stuff. My parents had some books illustrated by Howard Pyle and N.C.Y.F. and Norman Rockwell. So those were my heroes as a kid. I didn't know they were around like 30, 40, 50 years before my time.
Right.
But Rockwell wrote a book along with Arthur Guptill, Norman Rockwell illustrator, that showed his whole method. So you do thumbnail sketches, you get a model to pose, do charcoal study, then do a full charcoal comprehensive. And he followed that whole method. I tried doing that as a kid, and it really helped me sort of sort out how to break down an imaginative problem into stages so that you can figure out how to make it look realistic.
Right.
Which is what wildlife artists do, and maritime artists, and of course aviation artists too.
Right.
It's much more imaginative than people realize.
It is. It really is. And I was talking, your background is illustration originally, and what I was talking with one of our students this morning is that during a period where art was going through changes and everything was moving towards abstraction, it was the illustrators that kept representationalism alive, kept that art of being able to, the laws of perspective, the laws of how light works, which is something you're perpetuating. It was you guys that I would credit with keeping that alive, and now we have a revival of representationalism. It's coming back. People are interested in it. People want to learn how to do it, and they are oftentimes surprised at the science. There's science behind this. I tell people all the time that good art, especially representationalism, is not just one side of the brain. It's both sides. You have to use both sides. There's math involved. Sometimes when you're working out perspective, there's science involved. And so, thank you for being part of that, keeping that alive.
Well, you have to be analytical about it, but at the same time, you have to be intuitive and emotional and,
absolutely,
spontaneous.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what makes it exciting, is that you really call on all different aspects of your personality to make a picture. But unfortunately, a lot of the people during the Golden Age didn't write stuff down, or didn't write down their method. So you have to kind of, to figure out how they did stuff, you have to sort of work through firsthand accounts. And that's really where I've tried to offer some of my insights about some of the working methods, especially like how people would build maquettes or miniatures, how people would build a saddle and put it on a sawhorse, figure out an equestrian thing, or that kind of thing. So within the field of realist painting, there's so many different subcategories: maritime art and archaeological art and botanical art and wildlife art. And I've always been interested in every one of those things. So when I started out as an illustrator, I did paperback covers for science fiction and fantasy, and illustrations for National Geographic, doing archaeological reconstructions. because I was an archaeology major in college at UC Berkeley before going to art school.
Really?
And my dream was to, reconstruct these ancient cities. So when they sent me over to Jerusalem and northern Italy to research some ancient civilizations, it was just a great chance to learn from archaeologists and realize that that job involves a lot of imagination too.
It absolutely does. And you kind of answered my next question. I was going to ask you about the Dinotopia series, why dinosaurs, what sparked that, but talking about your archaeology background, I can see the worlds that you constructed, the classical architecture, and that probably came from that interest in that background.
Definitely, right? Yeah. And it really came out of my interest in that boundary line between what we know and what we can see with our hands and our senses, and then what we imagine.
Yeah.
And dinosaurs are right on that boundary line because we can look at the bones, we can look at the footprints, but we don't really know. Were they covered with feathers? Were they red or green or blue or brown? Or we don't know. And a lot of times when you're doing illustrations for National Geographic, you have to push the scientists or the archaeologists or the paleontologists to commit to what color should this thing be, and they say, well, I don't know, that's your problem, you're the artist.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, we have the same issue when I'm doing historical illustrations for World War I historians. They can give me so much information, but then there's a lack of information too. And the good ones that I work with will be the first to tell you, well, I don't know this, but I can only speculate, use your imagination. And so that's where it comes into play. You have free reign to do what you want within certain confines, of course.
Yeah.
But you can play with it a little bit. But then there are other areas where you know that, okay, this has to be right.
Right. The laws of perspective remain.
That's right. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to come out and paint with us today and to talk to me for a few minutes. It's always a joy to have you out here.
Sure thing.
So, and I'll pop up a link to your book and your videos.
Thank you very much.
When I put this video online.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. So thanks so much for a nice chat. All right. Take care.
For day 2 of the workshop, we began with a brief critique session of the previous day's work. After that, we went straight into painting, this time focusing on the human figure along with the aircraft. Our model, World War I historian and fellow artist Michael O'Neill, posed for us in front of the aerodrome SPAD 7 in his French pilot's uniform. On Saturday afternoons, Old Rhinebeck typically holds their early aviation air show. As fate would have it, though, a tropical storm off the coast brought in gusty winds, forcing the aerodrome to cancel their afternoon show. This worked out well for us, as it gave us another full day at the airfield to ourselves. We took advantage of the opportunity by painting the aerodrome's Bristol F-2B, an aircraft new to their collection. Sunday morning began a bit differently than the previous days, as we turned the podium over to one of our workshop participants to demonstrate some of his illustration techniques that he's picked up over his decades of experience.
Okay, Chris Payne, otherwise known as C.F. Payne.
Right.
It's funny when I get these people who email me talking about the workshop. Yeah, I want to join. All I see your names. And I didn't know who you were when you emailed me, but then you come in Friday morning and you're like, C.F. Payne, your 45-year career as an illustrator.
Right.
Very impressive portfolio, impressive resume.
Thank you.
I mean, here you are taking a workshop from me and Mark, and yet the past hour you spent instructing our class. So it's really what I told the students on Friday morning. We give and take to each other. We learn from each other. And it's really, really neat to have you here.
Well, thank you.
Can you tell me, have you learned anything this weekend? I know that you are not used to working plein air as long as your studio
Not used
career.
to. I've never done.
Yeah.
Never done it. I mean, I've been down in my basement doing my pictures, and so this was a great exercise. My wife found your posting on Facebook, and she said, you ought to try this, because she knows I love planes and models and things of that nature. So she was the one who kind of got the rock to turn for me to do this. And of course, I met Mark through the Marine Corps Museum program that they have out there, and loved his work. And of course, I saw his work up at Wright Pat. They had the aviation show there. So if I was going to plein air paint, do something that you like, So I came out here, and so yeah, absolutely, I learned. What I've learned was, you know, what my shortcomings are in plein air, and I think I've also learned how that I kind of came into it just wanting to just jump right in.
Right.
And I need to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Need to slow down. So today I'm going to only simplify my palette to about 4 colors.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I'm just learning again. I maybe have some success with this over here,
Mm-hmm.
but with this over here, it's like I'm on training wheels again. And
Yeah.
I got to learn a process, and I got to learn how to set this stuff up so that when I start something, I get myself in a position to have something worth finishing.
Yeah. And that's great. And that's what I try to tell the students in the workshop on Friday morning is we are here to fail. Do not be afraid to fail this weekend. You're not creating finished products. You're not creating something to hang on the wall. If it ends up being that, that's awesome. But you are here to step out of your comfort zone.
Oh, yeah.
And learn a new tool to put in your toolbox that you may not always use. I don't get out and paint plein air nearly enough, but what I have done has informed the studio work that I do now.
Oh, no question.
And so it's a good tool to have. And of course, you know, we've enjoyed the workshop this weekend. We love talking to you this weekend.
It's been great meeting you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I've met Mark before, but it's nice
Mhm.
to meet you finally.
Yeah.
So this has been wonderful, and I really appreciate you know, let me be part of this thing and learn, and, you know, learning from the students themselves. Like you said, there's an experience level from everybody here.
Yeah.
And they all come at it from different backgrounds,
Mhm.
and it's wonderful to watch them look over their shoulder as well.
Yeah, and it's having some return people here from our first year. It's neat to see how some of these people have grown in 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
By taking their work, taking what they learned last time and applying it, and have just leaps and bounds much better.
And this facility is amazing.
Isn't it?
It really
Isn't
is.
it
It really
great?
is inspiring.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you, Chris.
Appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
How much detail can a canvas this size handle? And I don't mean in a time frame, I mean like visually. If you've got a very small canvas, you know, you want to load it up with detail, or is that just going to be too much to try to read in this small image?
Yeah.
You know. Mark, man, what do you think of the weekend? I'm worn out. We've been painting all weekend.
We did it. 2 years later, we came back, and we had a great time. We've been painting, and just another 3 days of so much fun, so much learning, so much productivity, and yeah, a huge success in my
Oh,
mind.
yeah. But it's mentally and physically exhausting. Like yesterday, all of us were just done by the end of the day. But you get so much out of it. And to have James Gurney and Jeanette Gurney come back, we gave them a heads up, let them know we were gonna be here, and they came back and visited. We found out that one of our participants was like a bigwig illustrator with huge experience and a huge resume and just impressive skills. This morning, he shared some of those skills with us. We flipped the tables for about an hour, and we let him become the professor.
It's great. You know, everyone comes from a different bank of experience and knowledge, and everyone's learning. Everybody is learning. We all have new stuff to learn, new stuff to share. You're learning from everybody, and yeah, it's hard to take in all at once, but it's been a full 3 days.
Yeah, and I'm already in my mind planning out how we're going to do the next one in 2 years, what we need to add, things we need to talk about that we may have skipped this year, things that I saw people, maybe some mistakes I saw them doing that, okay, we need to add that to the curriculum next time.
Yeah, it's, you know, plein air is always such a challenge. Regardless, you don't have control of the weather or the light conditions, but you capture what you see as you see it, and you have a moving target sometimes. You know, we got a figure study in this time, which was we did it last time where you were the model, but this time Michael O'Neill stood in for us, and that was a great exercise. Just, you know, the environment, the landscape, the aircraft, the figures. It was you know, so much to cover, and yeah, well, I think we covered the bases. But there's a lot more left on the plate to take home too. So
yeah, and as it turns out, they didn't have an air show yesterday.
So because of the hurricane that was off the coast, it ended up not affecting us at all,
Yeah.
which, you know, that hurt their business, but it was great for us because we got the airfield all to ourselves for 2 days in a row.
It's been immersive.
Yeah.
It's been an immersive 3 days. Today's the air show. We got one morning session in, and I think some of us are going to have fun and stick around and watch the show now.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, Mark, it's been a pleasure.
Always.
And we're going to be in touch. We always are, but I'm looking forward to doing this again with you in a couple of years.
Let's do it.
Cool.
All right, guys, let me just say a heartfelt thank you to all of you who came out to the workshop this weekend and entrusted me and Mark to share some knowledge with you. Like I said, we were all students. Mark and I were learning too. And Mark and I, or at least I did, I had my failures this weekend. So, you know, as Mark said earlier in the week, sometimes you get a little bit of imposter syndrome. But again, thank you for trusting us with that. And thank you guys who came to the last workshop, who came back again. That's huge, man. That's a huge compliment. I very much appreciate that. We're going to try to do this again in 2 years. So, you know, keep a lookout for it. Give us your feedback, please.